too big, too small. The Stu Clark Center is your one-stop shop for everything you need to start your journey. So why not start today?
Why not start today? I really love that sentence because there's no good or wrong time to start. You just have to feel it. And here at the Stu Clark Center, we are here to support any person that is wondering about entrepreneurship. Maybe you have questions, maybe you don't know what entrepreneurship is, or maybe you are an entrepreneur, you are a business owner, and you are looking for your next step. We are located at the Drake Building within the business school on campus at the University of Manitoba. And this is the team, mighty team. And we have Deborah Jonathan Young, our director, Lindsay Friesen, our marketing coordinator, myself, Karen Bado, the venture coach, Amy Jones, our program coordinator, and Melida Sasek, our office coordinator. We are all here to support you. If you have any questions, feel free to pop by. And one of my role here is to provide one-on-one mentorship to students that are looking to learn more about entrepreneurship. This is a little bit of my background. I am an entrepreneur. I work with women entrepreneurs, fempreneurs, non-for-profit in the community as a business consultant. And I'm very, very super excited to also be working here as a venture coach. It's one of my favorite hats to wear. So if you have questions about entrepreneurship, again, feel free to reach out. We have an amazing platform that makes everything easy. You can go online, create a profile, book a meeting with me. Everything is synced with my calendar to make it easy for you. We do in-person meetings as well as virtual meetings, so you don't even have to leave your PJs or your bedroom if you want to talk to the venture coach. We are open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And yeah, I would love to hear more from you, from your ideas. We do market validation technique, business plan writing, lean canvas exploration, so providing you with the tools to start or grow your business. And with no further ado, I'm just going to introduce you our first panelist of the day, Michael Barkam. He is the Manitoba Network Manager for the Canadian CED Network. And it is a regional network, very well-based organization that support almost 100 organizations working on economic, social, and environmental change in Manitoba. And this includes non-for-profit community-based organizations, social enterprises, and cooperative. And Michael's work really focuses on the Manitoba region. And as you can see, he's very passionate about social enterprise. He's a lifelong Winnipegger based on Treaty 1 territory. He cares deeply about social, economic, and climate justice. And the power of collective movement and solution rooted in the knowledge of local community. He's also involved in organizing and advocating throughout the province, and he has served as the chairperson of the Canadian Federation of Students, Manitoba, also as the interim executive director of the Manitoba Association for Rights and Liberties, and the chair of Make Poverty History Manitoba. He has a bachelor in political science and urban and inner city studies from the University of Winnipeg. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today. And Michael is not alone. He's joined by a social entrepreneur. Sean Rayland-Boubar is the founder and owner of Red Rebel Armour, an indigenous-led social enterprise producing streetwears to fund its employment services, which provide on-the-job paid training for our relative returning back to the community from the criminal justice system. He's a proud father, Anishinaabe father, social entrepreneur, storyteller, and scabe. Thank you so much, Sean, for joining us. I am so eager to hear about your journey. And with no further ado, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And Michael, you can take over.
Thank you. Thanks for the nice introduction, and great to learn more about the work that you folks do, and nice to have everybody joining today. It's yeah, happy for folks to say hello in the chat. It's nice to read who you are and know that there's folks out there in the world listening and participating. Thank you for having us here. Yeah, thanks for the nice introduction too. I'm Michael. I'm going to talk for a little bit, share some slides and information, and then I'm going to pass it off to Sean. We'll share a documentary, and then he'll have a chance to talk. But maybe, Sean, before I dive into things, I want to give you a chance to say hello, let people hear your voice, and maybe a short introduction too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Bonjour, Nebu Isabe, Indigenous Magazine Dodem. I said my name is Standing Sasquatch Man, and I'm from the Eagle Clan, and my given name is Sean Rayland-Boubar. I'm honored, I'm happy just to come in, chat it up with you guys, share a little bit about the experience. I haven't gotten much to talk about social enterprise in a little while, so it's good to, I was going through the notes last night and just kind of, reliving our mission, why we started, right? Because sometimes you start something and then you get caught in operations, and then you got to learn all these things to keep your organization going. So yeah, long story short, happy to be here, and just miigwech.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for the introduction, and miigwech for joining. And I'm so happy and excited for people to hear about the work that you do, and glad that this experience sort of rerouted in that mission that you have, which is great. Yes. I'm just going to get my screen sharing going here. Hopefully that's working okay. Cool. Yeah, so I'm Michael Barkam. I'm part of this network, the Community Economic Development Network, and like Corinne shared, I'm been doing work on Treaty 1 here, and connected with national work that's been really focused on ways that we can build more sustainable, inclusive communities and economies, and doing that through our enterprise and businesses approach. So happy to talk about social enterprise today. Kind of talking this and rooting in some of the kind of framework that I come from, that our network works on, about community economic development. We'll talk a bit about social enterprise as that sort of key way to achieve community economic development. We're going to show this amazing documentary that Red Rebel Armour has that sort of talks about Sean's story, about the work that they do. And then you'll hear a lot more from Sean about the social enterprise work that they do, both the entrepreneurial business side and then also on the social impact work that they do. And then we'll have lots of time at the end for Q&A and discussion. So something that happens, we as a network are sort of a place often where folks come for social enterprise help and support and advice. And the calls that I get that feel the most like I know that idea is going to succeed is when somebody is rooting in a broader vision for how what they're doing is contributing to something to make our community more ideal. And when folks come in with a strong sense of their vision, of their purpose, of their mission, I know that idea is going to be something that will be more long lasting. And that's maybe kind of one of the most important takeaways, I think, of social enterprise work, is that when you're coming in really rooted in that vision and how your work contributes to a bigger change and a bigger push in our community for change, for more inclusive communities, I think that's really important. Sometimes when folks come in on the other side being like, I've got this great business idea, and like, I don't know who it's going to help, but I'll just sort of pick this community. I want to serve them. And if someone's not like rooted in that or coming from that community, the effectiveness, I think, doesn't quite last as long. So this is just one image of sort of an ideal community and pieces of it that we need. But that's really important to our network, in talking about folks' social enterprise or social entrepreneurship journey is really rooting in a mission is so crucial. Also, a bit of this idea of sort of connecting economic work with social or environmental work too. And often in our broader society, those things can feel kind of divorced. There's conversations about economic development, and there's conversations about social challenges or social issues, and they feel sort of separate. They need maybe separate solutions, separate budgets from governments, separate kind of responses from community. And our network is trying to sort of position that actually there's a strong intersection between that economic and that social piece. And social enterprise, I think, really sits at that intersection. It comes from this idea of thinking about economic development, of the English word economy. Eco means home. It comes from the Greek word oikos, meaning home. So if you think about economy as the management of our home, so how we organize our relationships in a place. And a bit comes from this idea, if there's any economics students or folks out there, that humans have sort of established and created our economy, and therefore, there are some things that exist just naturally within that, but there's a lot that humans can adapt and change, and we've built our economy in this way. So we ought to be able to create enterprises in new ways too. So the kind of concept of community economic development that we have, again, I think is really at that heart, that intersection between social and economic. We can't necessarily have a strong economy if we're not including everybody, and also at the same time to deal with or address or support folks going through social challenges. I think there's so much that an inclusive economic development approach can help to address that. So we really believe that community economies, local places, can be really amazing sites of transformation and of change too, of social change, of economic change, of environmental transformation. And sometimes those sort of micro or smaller pieces within local economies can build up to quite a bit of change. So we see really the folks working in our network, folks like Sean, is doing business in a way that's sort of challenging status quo, how things have maybe been always done, and trying to build together something that considers this idea of what I'm going to throw out there a little bit later, triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. So the outcomes of community economic development can be in all of that sort of area. It can be things that help to address poverty or improve social conditions, or a lot of people are also trying to do environmental action as well, or maybe a combination of all of that. This one is maybe the most text of, or maybe that's not true, the next one too, but sort of what community economic development is like. It's really important, maybe the one takeaway from this slide of the work that we're trying to do. I think that sort of this approach, economic development approach with a social impact in mind, is best done when it's led by folks within their own communities who understand that, who are recognizing what's needed, rather than sort of a top-down, like, we're going to fly over there and say, hey, here's how your economy's all messed up, and here's the kind of enterprises you need. One, again, that I think is more inclusive, is less colonial in its approach, and one that I think will also lead to more longer-lasting effectiveness is one when it's place-based and led by folks in the communities where they're at. So maybe this one slide, the one takeaway is that sort of bottom-up community-led approach we think will lead to the most sort of effective and long-lasting approaches. Community economic development and the social enterprise model in Manitoba is really based in this pretty incredible story of the Nietzsche principles. And I think really important to root my sort of what I'm talking about today and contributing in this important history and the ancestors in our community economic development and social enterprise movement that have come before us. Many are still around too, but this is the story that sort of built CED and social enterprise in Manitoba. There's a long-lasting Indigenous worker cooperative in the north end of Winnipeg called Nietzsche Foods. Many people might have heard about them. Unfortunately, they had to close down, and there were some challenges I think with their business in the last little bit of years. But I think the focus too on the fact that an Indigenous-led worker cooperative lasted for many, many decades within the north end of Winnipeg, one of community facing multiple economic challenges, I think is one of success. There's many businesses that begin and close within short periods of time. That happens to us as well. What adds to this story is that the folks at Nietzsche Commons developed a set of 11 principles for doing community economic development, for doing social enterprise. They based it a bit in international cooperative principles, so that as a business type, but also really looking at Indigenous teachings and Anishinaabe teachings that led to these 11 principles. I won't read them all, but it's really sort of the heart of how they developed their business model, again, as an Indigenous worker co-op. Not only that, In the early 2000s, the province of Manitoba looked to this example and said, we're going to create a whole framework, a community economic development framework, for how we're deciding about social and economic development choices in the province of Manitoba. And they based that framework on these 11 principles. So this one worker co-op, these entrepreneurs in Winnipeg's North End, helped to influence an entire provincial economic and social development strategy that lasted for many years after that. It's actually sort of still on the books provincially, and it's one that we're really advocating that governments of any political sort of stripe really look to as something that can support social and economic development. Here's another way of sort of conceptualizing, I think, what social enterprises can do, is thinking about many economies, especially ones where people are have faced sort of economic exclusion or marginalization. Think about it, this idea of a leaky bucket. So I'm thinking about a story maybe that I've been told and passed down about how a social enterprise called Aki Foods got started. Aki Foods is an awesome social enterprise. It's connected with their sister social enterprise called Aki Energy. The story was that folks in Garden Hill First Nation in northern Manitoba, what would happen is many folks in the community benefit from and receive welfare checks, social assistance checks from government. Those would arrive in communities, so it'd be money coming in from government. People would need to then pay for a ferry to get to an island where there was the Northern Store. So the Northern Store is the main sort of food and store in many northern communities. It's remnants of the Northwest Company, which is sort of from a history of colonization, although the company has tried to move away from that. But the challenge was that welfare checks were arriving. People would pay for the ferry to get over to the island where they'd buy very expensive groceries. All the money from their welfare check would go to the Northern Store. No one in the local community would benefit from that economically other than the few who were maybe hired there. Pay for the ferry to come back, and by the time they got back with very expensive groceries, that social assistance check is gone. So that's a massive leaky bucket. There's many holes in the local economy there. Social entrepreneurs in that community stepped in and said, we can find ways to fill those holes with a social enterprise. So they created Aki Foods, where they created many different ways to grow food, hydroponic sort of different things where they can grow food in northern communities, employ people, pay them well to operate, to run, to farm, and to sell that food, and then to sell that to the community at costs that were competitive and sometimes lower than the Northern Store. They did not want to go with a charity model where they were giving out free food. They wanted to make sure that it was an economic model where people were being paid adequately for their work, and there was money that was staying in the community as a result. So because of that, they've been able to plug some holes in their food system and their food economy, and sort of address some of the challenges of leaky bucket. And that's something that we see across all sorts of communities, and especially in Winnipeg. There's many examples of social enterprises who've tried to sort of fill those leaky bucket holes with solutions that work and are led by people who are in those communities. This is another way, a bit more sort of a formal way of conceptualizing where social enterprises sit. This is kind of a spectrum of organizations, from traditional charities on the left, all the way to sort of your kind of commercial enterprises on the right. And the sort of work of social enterprise, social entrepreneurship are kind of these middle 3 or 4. Our network deals a lot with social enterprises that are owned by or operated by a nonprofit. So I'm thinking the North End Women's Center, a great nonprofit in the North End, runs Upshop. It's a social enterprise thrift store on Selkirk Avenue, where the profits they make from that thrift store go to support programs of the Women's Center. So that's an enterprising arm of a charity. There's sort of pure social enterprises who may be for-profit or maybe non-profit. And I think Red Rebel Armour is a great example of that. And Sean's going to talk about his example a little bit more. Cooperatives are another sort of business model where we're seeing ownership by people who are consuming or working at that business. And it's one maybe I would encourage entrepreneurs to look at as part of their social entrepreneurship journey. And then, of course, many of you might already be working or be part of social purpose businesses, one where the the purpose, the drive, what you were talking about, Corinne, at the beginning, some of the things I think you're involved with might be a few different things, but I want to hear more about stories that you have to share about really awesome ways that business is being used to achieve a social purpose while also generating revenue to keep the business afloat, running, and paying folks too. So we're really supportive of kind of all of these approaches. I think we need all of them. And it fits within this broader framework of community economic development, of ways that we can make business achieve social good in meaningful ways. It's also maybe different, this I can get on my last, a little bit of a soapbox. It's different than I think an approach that has existed around corporate social responsibility, or maybe just a charitable approach, where in December, business might say, now is our time in which we're going to donate money. We don't necessarily have a good relationship or a relationship at all with this organization, but we're going to donate the money so we can check off that we've done our corporate social responsibility. I think the challenge here is trying to embed that social mission deeply within your business 365 days of the year. So that's really what these approaches are. The last couple of things I'll say, so this is a definition. There's a Social Enterprise Council of Canada, sort of helps to advocate for social enterprises. There's another group called BiSocial Canada, and that's one that actually can certify a social enterprise. So if you're interested in that, BiSocial does training, and they'll help you get certified too. It's really great. For example, the city of Winnipeg is going to be looking at buying from social enterprises and sort of giving more points when it's doing procurement work. And if you're certified with BiSocial Canada, that automatically will help give you more points sort of in their system when they're doing procurement. I've said this already, but the sort of people, planet, profit, a blended return on investment is really where social enterprises sit. I think that's maybe all I'll share. Talk a bit more, maybe if folks have specific questions later on about kind of, there's different incorporation. Social enterprises, there's no like formal incorporation. You'd either be a for-profit business or a nonprofit or a cooperative. So it's more a movement of ways that we're defining ourselves, with some actors like BiSocial Canada that are certifying social enterprises too. But there's no sort of business registry in Manitoba that you would become a social enterprise. If folks have, again, specific questions about incorporation, I'm happy to talk about that more. What we do, alluded to a little bit, but CEDNet is the Community Economic Development Network. So we are a network of social enterprises, of community-based organizations, especially ones who are doing that social and economic development work, and cooperatives. In some ways, we're like a little mini chamber of commerce where we can help service our members and also sort of advance the vision that we have through advocacy with governments. So that's a lot about what we do. We put on workshops all the time around these topics. So if you're really keen on it, happy to, I'll share our newsletter link, so you can join the newsletter and see what kind of workshops we're offering too, and happy for further learning and partnerships together. That's all for me. So hopefully a bit of information of sort of around the theory and concept of how we see social enterprises and what they do. And now we're going to share, I think, a really amazing example, which is Red Rebel Armour. So Sean, if it still works, I'm going to show the video first, and then I'll pass it over to you, unless you want to say any comments before we show the video.
No, I think it's it's perfect into what I'm going to talk about afterwards. So at least the audience will get a good overview of everything we're doing, and then great.
Okay, I will play it, and then just maybe folks let me know if you can hear it.
Hi, my name is Sean Rayland-Boubar. I'm a former addict, ex-gang member, and now the owner of Red Rebel Armour. When I was a child, I was raised by a single mother. My father and mother, they split up early on. There was a lot of domestic violence that was taking place. So we ended up just kind of moving all over Winnipeg. My mom was busy working, trying to pay the bills, make sure that she could raise her son right, have all the necessities. But it wasn't good enough, and I say that not to put any diss on my mom or anything like that. It's just that the environment that I was being raised in, you know, growing up around gangs, seeing a lot of drugs, alcohol, I mentioned domestic violence. Seeing that domestic violence, that affected me. I didn't realize that it affected me though, because I thought that was normal. I thought this is how you're supposed to treat women. These are relationships. Seeing my uncles and cousins and their relationships and seeing all that domestic violence, it was like, okay, well, that's how it's supposed to be. But no, that wasn't. My first baby's mom, she already had a child when I met her. Didn't matter that she had a child. I got clowned on by all my friends, even their parents. But you know what? That's what I wanted. I wanted to do that because I wanted to be the father that I never had. But what I didn't understand was being a parent, and especially an Indigenous father living in society these days, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. Drugs have always been a part of my life that I feel, especially after 12, that's when I first started selling drugs. I started selling weed. The first time that I tried crack, I was 12 years old. When you look back and I'm like, wow, like this is crazy the way I'm living. The way that I got to that point to have that epiphany was meeting with an elder named Lionel Houston in the Winnipeg Remand Center.
I used to work in corrections, the Winnipeg Remand Center, and that's where I first met Sean. And I was up on one of the units, and I saw him there, and he was kind of off by himself. I thought, well, I'm going to call this fella down, because I saw something in him that he needed to let go. So I called him to my office, and that's how we started to meet. From that point on, that's when I started to teach him about who we are as Anishinaabe people. You know, so one of the things that I had to do first in order to gain his trust was to make him feel like he belonged. I saw something in him, you know, something different. And I guess with the many ways that I spoke to him, I would make him think. I'd make him discover that answer rather than me give him the answer. And I think that's what empowered him. One time I asked him, the road that you're on now, where does that lead? You know, what's gonna happen? Like, I mean, at the end of the road, you know? And so he said, I
was like, well, that's easy, fucking jail or fucking dead. And he's like, okay, now tell me about that good road. And I said, I don't know, get a license, I guess, and get legit. I don't know, I can't see it.
He didn't come up with an answer. He couldn't. How could he? He's never been on that road, right? But he took it upon himself to go discover that. You know, and I think that's where he started to learn a lot about himself, you know, because I kept pushing him into those areas where he could find that answer. Right? So that empowered him.
Some of the things that I had to work through was just challenging my own beliefs. Why was I reacting the way I was to certain things? Why I was behaving the way I questioned everything. And when I started thinking that way, I might cry a little bit because I never thought of our people like that, if that makes sense. Just because, like, I guess growing up, I'm half English, I'm half Anishinaabe. Like, where do I fit in? I didn't fit in with the white guys or the native guys. So it was like meeting with Lionel and having him just talk about our people in a good way. Just really, really made me want to change anyway. So after learning of who are people, how they conducted themselves, I was able to like create this vision of a person that I wanted to be. And so I still work towards that every day.
but I still kept coming back to jail. I went out and I did the same things because that's how I knew how to survive. For me, it was always selling drugs or robbing people. So I'm coming back to jail, and I decided that I wanted to get my grade 12. I was locked up. There was this other guy there. He was doing his mature grade 12. I'm like, how do you do that? And he's mentioned to me, the school was Turtle Mountain Indigenous Institution. He said, reach out there, and I got my mature grade 12 in there. And so I'm going back home. I have my family. I have my third baby mom now, and we want to do things right. So I'm working, and I'm like, man, I need to find a way to make more cash. We got kids. We need to figure this out. So I went on to the internet. I found the Social Innovation and Community course at Red River, and I started reading through that at the description, and they talked about using business skills to help your community. Okay, this is perfect because here I am, I have all these skills, and I know I do, but I only know how to use them for the negative way. So maybe I could learn something here. Maybe I could become something. Maybe I could be that person that I talked about earlier. So I ended up applying for Red River. I was waiting to be accepted, but during this time that I was out, I was attending sharing circles every Wednesday. I contacted Lionel again. I said, hey, I'm out. I want to try something different. So I got invited to a Sundance meeting, and me and my partner decided to pledge. And during that time, we quit weed, we quit alcohol. Those were the biggest things, because when I did first get out, I went back to my old ways right away. So I continued with that. I got accepted into school with, I actually got funding from my band. I gave myself to the program. During this whole time too, when I'd go home, I was working on my side hustle. At night, be up there till like 4 or 5 in the morning working on my website. That's how I learned how to make nice websites, is just on YouTube. I learned graphic design, web design, I learned marketing. I'm still on there learning all kinds of things. Whatever my business needs, I'll go learn it. I'll go learn it so I could bring it back and we could keep this thing rolling.
So now he's learning about independence. So the independence part is that he's took on this business and he's doing it on his own, but he hasn't forgotten where he come from, right? So a lot of things that he's doing right now is preparing for the next stage, which is generosity. He's trying to give back.
Life before I came to Red Rebel wasn't too good for me. I was involved in gang life. I was in and out of prison a lot, right? But growing older, I realized I can't continue to live like that anymore. I got children I need to take care of, right? I'm getting older now. I decided to change my life, and coming to work every day is what changed everything for me, because back then I never had that before. All I knew was get out, sell drugs, party, go to jail, And it was like that for a long time, and for a long time I never wanted to try anything different, but this time I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a job and I'm gonna stick to it and see what happens. So I've been out now I've been out since May 24th, 2021. I have no runners with the law. I'm on a program currently. I'm gonna be finishing it next week, which means I'll be done probation, I'll be done with everything. So working here is what helped me get off of all those restrictions and conditions that I had, because when I come here, I work, and that's something that's giving me, it's giving me structure in life, you know what I mean? Like, coming to work every day I know is what I need to do to live a better life so that I don't go back to doing what I used to do. Sean showed me that there's a different way to live, and I just started listening to him, following him, and he showed me a lot of things that, like for one, getting my bank account. Today I just got the call saying that I've got a house. Yeah, now my kids are gonna come. It's really something I worked hard to get to, because being able to move out from a basement to a house of my own is going to be really great. Yeah, something I've never had before yet, but this will be my first home.
I have so many family too that have family in jail. I have family that are addicts, family that are on the street. Just don't give up. That would be my biggest message, because it's so easy to give up when you're used to giving up all the time, when you're used to giving in, you know. You just gotta just go, just keep going. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever your goal is, whatever you're trying to do, don't give up. Man, the support that we've been getting for Red Rebel Armour, I can't believe it. It's like a dream I keep waking up to. The fans, for sure, that are buying our products, man, like, yeah, I'm just completely grateful for everyone that's been on my journey. The team that I have now, these are people from my life too. I'm so happy that they're there, that they believed in me to want to participate in this as well, right? Because just 4 years ago, I just got out of jail. Like, is that someone you want to trust, right? But they're trusting me now. So that's how I know that, you know, I'm on the good path too, that my community sees it, and that they're just, yeah, it's just nothing but gratitude for them. And that's why I live my life the way I do. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to do any of that no more. I want to take care of my kids. I want to, you know, be a good role model for whoever that needs it, right? So just nothing but gratitude. That's how I pay it back.
John, thank you for, I'm so happy we watched that, and for your vulnerability, sharing. Let me pass it over to you now, if that's okay.
Yeah, for
Adding
sure.
on to
Like I'm all in my feels too. I always get in my feels watching.
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah, it's really powerful. It's a good example of the full circle, the work that Lionel Houston was doing inside, you know, trickled out here and was able to help me and help Justin, right? So, but I wanted to give an overview. I got some notes I wrote last night for you guys and just try to explain this thing, you know, in a more, you know, business and social enterprise context. So, with e-commerce, fashion, and art, social enterprise, culture, and street smarts, we proved we can save the government money, generate revenues and profit, and create opportunities for employment for marginalized communities, which leads to an increase in overall health and well-being, family reunification, post-secondary education, and completion of programs with justice. So we are mainly self-funded through the sales of our merchandise and services, but we also utilize targeted wage subsidies to assist us in paying our relatives' wages. You know, and I was going to go into why. It's pretty evident watching the video why I'm doing this work, why I'm so passionate. I know Michael, you know, touched base on it earlier in his slides with the people, you know, the organizations that really see something through are from the community, you know, as opposed to we're coming out here telling you how to do this and fix your life. No, this is coming straight from grassroots. That's why it's so powerful. But there's, you know, there is a problem going on here, you know, across Canada and in Manitoba, especially, you know, this is why I'm doing this. So to identify problems and opportunities, Red Rebel Armour conducted a community needs assessment and gap analysis of the over-incarcerated Indigenous population in Manitoba. Qualitative and quantitative data were analyzed and examined for common themes. In our findings, we identified the historical trauma of colonization and socioeconomic marginalization as contributed factors to the over-incarceration of Manitoba's Indigenous peoples, as well as a gap in public service supports upstream and early intervention support. So, what is the Indigenous incarceration rate in Manitoba? In Manitoba, Indigenous people represent over 70% of the prison population, either sentenced or sitting on remand. And that's as of January 19, 2023, from the Department of Justice. So compared with the fact Indigenous people represent only 18% of the population in Manitoba, we need solutions now. Those numbers, it's ridiculous, right? We need to come up with something. And, you know, I decided I wanted to do this. I wanted to tackle this thing. I know it's a huge problem with so many, it's complex and compounded, the barriers someone that faces when either when they're released from jail, on top of the criminal record, all that transportation, intergenerational trauma, all these things, that the historical trauma and, socioeconomic factors, all of those pieces. But okay, so, and the business model. So I wanted to discuss some of the business. So we are for profit, as Michael mentioned. There's three main reasons why, and I just can't remember them all. I got two, and it's because we could access money that nonprofits can't access as well. I did while I was studying for my diploma in Indigenous social entrepreneurship. Sean Loney came and gave a presentation, and he was talking about the differences between a nonprofit and for-profit. And I just really felt like the for-profit was the way to go. Just we're self-determined. We want to, run our own ship, and we want to make sure that, our vision stays the vision. It doesn't change based on what we need for funding, right? We stay to our core vision. But we are e-commerce based, right? So everything we do is 70% of our revenues is from e-commerce. We're e-commerce based. That's our bread and butter. That's where we try focus. It's a made to order model. So every the supplies and the inventory, we keep everything blank, and that's so we could reduce waste, and so we could manage our inventory better, right? Rather than printing 1,000 of a design, 100 or whatever, it doesn't sell, we don't get stuck with it. And we do that all with the heat press and a product called Super Color. It's eco-friendly ink on and a recyclable transfer paper. So, and what's unique about this method, I wouldn't say it's unique, there's lots of people doing it, but using these two pieces for scaling is it's an entry level job. Like it's easy to get in. Here you could come to Red Rebel Armour, come be a heat press operator. Here you're manufacturing our clothes, 16.66 an hour, competitive wage. You come in, boom, here you can start getting your basic needs. And I'm always talking to our employees, like, we're a stepping stone. A Red Rebel Armour ain't a final destination. If you did want to stay here, yes, that's awesome. Let's build this and grow it some more. But I just let people know that too. Like, just come in, get your employment, get what you need to keep you going on to be your best self. So our first year of business was just under 10K. I was still in the basement, still figuring out things, selling shirts at Red River. Our second year was just under 100K. And our third year was 387. And we're going into our fourth year right now. We're projected to do 1 million. And those projections are based off because we moved to a new 2,300 square foot warehouse. We upgraded from a 300 square foot office. That's where I got able to meet Michael in the social enterprise center. So with that new move, that opened up new opportunities for employment. So it has a retail space and new opportunities for to generate revenues. So we're going to have that retail piece. We're also looking at creating a workshop, like with the video that you guys seen there, and just talking about entrepreneurship and education. So we currently have 6 full-time staff members. We offer our branded merch, our RA merch, custom printing, and we're wholesale distributors for our blank supplier. We design everything inside in-house, and our main artist we work with is Anishinaabe artist Cale Bonham. And let's see, yes, and we also have products available at INAC, at Polo Park, and their Regina location, and Indigenous First Designs, I believe, in Saskatchewan as well. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the employment service side of things. So that the employment service side is our social purpose. It's what Red Rebel Armour is. But the model that we operate our social enterprise is called the service subsidization model. And the service subsidization model of social enterprise sells products or services to an external market and uses the income it generates to fund its social programs. The service subsidization model is usually integrated. Business activities and social programs overlap, sharing costs, assets, operations, income, and often program attributes. We provide on-the-job paid training in a culturally safe work environment. We provide access to culture and ceremony. And we do referrals to external agencies for housing, banking, and any other basic needs that, that might arise. Our employees say, hey, Sean, can you help me out with this or point me in the right direction? Boom, we're able to send you to the right person. And something that, I was doing some research, Homeboy Industries might be, of interest to anyone out there. In LA, they're based out of LA, and they serve roughly 15,000 gang members per year. But the founder was talking about something that happens, and it's called workplace therapy. And I didn't know what the term was because it was already happening organically as we're working. You see through my personal story, I have a lot of experience in this, and the people that are coming to us have their stories as well. So we're able to relate, we're able to talk, we're able to, reach higher perspectives of situations, especially being Indigenous, and growing up here, and learning of how we're interacting with society, right? So that's something that's huge, and it happens organically, just having that little bit of workplace therapy. I thought that was, that's beautiful. But some social impacts to date include by employing one of our relatives for 1 year, we prevented one interaction with law enforcement and 12 months of secured custody cost, saving the federal government of Canada over $160,000, because we know one interaction costs $51,000 and it costs an estimated $120,000 to house an inmate federally, according to Gabor 2015. So this individual is still employed full-time, employed full-time here. Employees are coming to us, they're getting trained, employed, upskilled in Shopify, graphic design software, Katana manufacturing software, because we're made to order. That software helps us out, and shipping software, but it's not that our employees took a full course in their masters at those softwares. They just needed to learn what we needed to do to keep the operation going. But big ups on them, because there's times where because we are a small team and I get stuck having to do the admin, the other stuff too, right? So it's like, hey, you're going to learn this today. What? Yeah, okay, I'll learn it, and there's always just open to taking on more, and it's just beautiful. Completion of programs with justice. With Justin, I feel comfortable talking about Justin because he was in the video. But when he got out, he finished serving a lengthy sentence, and he was on one of the most challenging probations that you could be on, and lots of phoning in every night and seeing the POs all the time, dropping by the work. But he did it. He showed up, he came to work, and he did it. And he overcame his programs with justice there. Now he's living in his own 3-bedroom place. Like, the guy's doing good for himself. Still coming to work. We're doing other things. But an increase in pro-social behavior is something that I see, amongst our employees, and which is huge. The probably the biggest one is wanting to start their own businesses, wanting to be entrepreneurs. They started their own brands. They wanted to try the clothing thing. Their products are available on our website too. New brands emerging, to help create that extra income for them. So we're always talking about marketing, all these other things. I'm trying to share as much as I could with them, and just wanting to, just wanting to do things that they never really would have given a shot, and I know this because we have intimate conversation. They tell me straight up, so maybe I don't think I would have stayed employed anywhere else if it wasn't here, if it wasn't like this, so that means a lot. Family reunification, having being able to spend time with their children on the weekend, having those phone calls. Now they could be a support. You're not locked up, you can't do nothing from there. Now you're out here, you could help out with whatever it is, whatever your child needs. And an increase in self-awareness and identity. That one's huge because, like I mentioned earlier, through the workplace therapy, now we could understand how we're functioning out in this new system. It's a new system, employment, entrepreneurship, right? Canada's only been here for 150 years. We're still trying to figure this out. So those are, through my experience, I'm able to talk about that. Like, this is how we're surviving out here. And it's, there's a relationship between, entrepreneurship and being self-determined and all those pieces. And I think that's why, you know, with I'm gonna make a tie here. But when I used to be involved in that old lifestyle, I was trafficking, I was doing that. And when I discovered entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship in my healing journey, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize it at first, but my first year in full entrepreneurship, I was like, this lifestyle is very similar to that one because you're making your own decisions, you're responsible for everything, right? And so I could see why too. That's the challenge. Like, why would I give up that self autonomy just to go, you know, get a job now and try be legit? But you know, I have to tell that person, yes, just do it because you can use those skills to help your community now. Now we don't have to destroy it. So that's something I always talk about. And yeah, and those are the pieces I wanted to touch me, which
Sean, thank you for that. And yeah, like so expertly talking about your social impact, that work, and yeah, like the business work that you're doing. And it's just a perfect example of that embedding. You know, you like you said, you could have sort of gone and worked for a company or something, but I love sort of talking about that social enterprise is also a way for your sovereignty and your power and like your ability to still work independently in the way that you want to.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes, that's huge. Yeah.
it's great. Yeah.
I think
And then also,
like, oh,
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna mention yeah, like I wanted to talk about it from those two lenses because when I talk about social enterprise or Red Rebel Armor, it's like this. But when we pull it apart, it's like here's the business side of it, here's the employment service side of it, and they just feed each other. The revenues from here pay their wages. These guys are working here, you know,
Right.
and then with the targeted wage subsidies, we wouldn't have been able to hire Justin without those targeted wage subsidies. You know, I'm so happy that I got the information here. Ask these people. They covered 50% of their wages when I first came out of school. And when I came out of school and said, okay, I'm going all in, like, yeah, we had some cash, but not for all that. But, you know, targeted wage subsidies really, really was a crucial piece in, you know, helping us, you know, keep them employed.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And I mean, like I was gonna say too, the other model again of like could have created a business that sort of one time a year donate some money to the community, et cetera. But you really like made that mission embedded in your work, but knowing that realistically that might be also hard for bottom line. So like looking at programs like that, and we want to be real about that with social enterprise. Like it's not always going to be you'll make a ton of profits and you'll have 100% an awesome mission. I think we like rely on programs like that.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily easy. And like nonprofits who are social enterprises also will rely on investment or loan programs or whatever to get their business going or so yeah, it's not always going to be like you can also 100% achieve great social mission and make a ton of money at the same time. It
Yeah.
won't
You know what?
necessarily be that way.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that's exactly how it is. I'm trying to find balance. And like for the social impacts to date, I know we have way more. I know we could put a valuation on them, but because of our capacity, you know, I'm just like, okay, I have to not look at this for now because we need to make sure we have money for wages. So I got to go learn Facebook ads. So because, you know, that's the entrepreneur in me. I just want to invest in self. Boom, let's do this. But I'll go learn that to make us, you know, to make sure that we have these sales coming in. But because I'm so focused over here on sales marketing, these parts, you know, it's like, okay, now the social enterprise piece, all the tracking, all that stuff. It's like, okay, so where I'm finding myself now is really just sitting back and like, okay, I really want to build a team. The foundation is there. I just, you know, I need some experts in these areas too, especially for the clothing business. That's a whole beast, that clothing business. But you know, so it's all about balance. Hard to find it.
It's great. I know we don't have much time left, and there's one question in the chat. If people have more, feel free to ask, but maybe I'll switching gears a little bit, but I think it's such a great question from Jessica about how can environmental organizations and activists engage communities to take ownership and responsibility for sustainable environmental practices, especially when the community perceives these initiatives as solely driven by the organization or maybe like the company too, resulting in a lack of community investment in the projects and their long-term sustainability. Jessica, such an important question and probably won't have time to answer it super adequately here. So please, I'd love to keep talking about it with you. I'm thinking maybe two things. So one is like, yeah, greenwashing is such a challenge. So is also this term we're talking about, social washing, like a business who's able to be like, we're doing this awesome thing for the community. But if you really dig down, the impact is small. I'm thinking about maybe two things. One is like where sort of if we can become shareholders or investors or that sort of thing in businesses, that's often where impact, whether it's social or environmental, is really proof is in the pudding. Like, what is you investing in if it's a larger business? The other thing I'm thinking about is procurement. Like, that's another way where, especially environmental, but also social practices really comes in. So whether you're a small entrepreneurship business, a clothing company or a construction company or a bank or credit union, your procurement, what you're buying, is also, I think, a really important place where your social or environmental mission can be put into action. I'm thinking of something like Assiniboine Credit Union. That's one of a few sort of B Corp, certified B Corps in Manitoba. Really, one of the biggest things they've done to achieve that is looked at who they're buying from, its environmental impact and its social impact. And it's a great example of, you know, credit union is a form of social enterprise. It's a cooperative way that we have our banking. And that's a place where members can like really demand that to work differently. It's not a great answer, I know, because it's a short amount of time, but I see there's a couple more thoughts or questions coming in. Someone, Esther, said this gave me hope today. That's so exciting. Yesterday I was feeling extremely defeated by the lack of support with the program I run. Thunder Bay is a hard city to believe in the work I'm trying to create for children. Thanks for being here too from Thunder Bay. Again, Jessica, happy to chat more. I'll pop my email in the chat. That's our thanks, Corinne, for sharing our full website. That's our Manitoba work. And then I'll put my contact in here too. Yeah, really appreciate time. I know we didn't have a ton of time for questions, but it's so awesome to be able to share time with folks today, and really appreciate people attending this work. I also feel really kind of more motivated after seeing people interested in this topic and knowing that we can do a lot to try and make sure that our economy is working for more people, and create sort of the enterprises we need that don't just sort of have a charitable approach once a year, but maybe really embed a social environmental mission into your work 365 days a year. It's not always easy. So happy to keep talking. Please reach out. And we, again, last thing I'll throw is our newsletter. We put a lot of workshops on about social enterprise. If you really want to dive a bit deeper, please feel free to join us. Sean, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did, and for making sure that folks got to see that amazing video. It's really an incredible story, and one I hope everybody in Manitoba sees one day and beyond.
For sure. I'm just, really honored that you guys invited me here. And yes, like Michael said, so happy that, you know, the interest for social enterprise is there. It's awesome. You know, it's like, that's the way we could really, you know, heal a lot of social ailments or social problems through this type of work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with us. This was so insightful. And again, we work with students here at the University of Manitoba that are interested to learn about entrepreneurship, and social enterprise came up quite a few times when meeting with students. And I think that was very insightful. Thank you so much, Michael, for providing that timeline, you know, from social to economic. It's really defined exactly what students need to understand, because sometimes it's confusing, right? But today was brought a lot of clarity. And Sean, your story is amazing. You are doing business from the heart. Like, I was literally 2 seconds away from crying, and I remember, okay, I have the camera on. But thank you so much. Thank you for the work you are doing for the community. And even here at the University of Manitoba, we have support as well for Indigenous communities. So please reach out. I definitely will be reaching out again to share your contact with some of our partners here that support the community, and we really hope to see you back. But yeah, we're gonna conclude for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, this is the last webinar, but we are coming back in the fall, September. We're gonna be planning and probably bring some of the great topic back again, like this one. And yeah, give a follow to Michael and Sean and Red Rebel Armour. They have their social media, LinkedIn. Please keep the engagement, keep learning, keep your passion alive. And yeah, have a great rest of the afternoon. And that's everything for today.